Okay, hey guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to Wayne Manor North. Today we're going to try something a little bit different. Think you might like it. Today we're going to review these two fantastic black and white statues from DC Collectibles. So let's go black and white. So let's get started. I think this sets the tone really nice for these two pieces. Today we're going to review two black and white statues, as I said. The first is from artist Mark Simpson, who goes by Jock. We're going to review his statue. And the second piece we're going to do is by Bruce Timm, the piece from his work on Batman the Animated Series. But let's start with Jock. Jock, really well-known artist, goes back a number of years, actually started his career way back on titles like The Losers and others, but really most recently well known for his work on Batman, a little bit on Wolverine, and most recently on The Batman Who Laughs. Also did work on Batman the Black Mirror, which I have here, and I'll share a little bit about that piece with you here in a few minutes. But let's talk about the statue. The piece is fantastic. I'm going to bring up some close-ups here. Super dynamic piece. I'd have to say this is probably, I have about 16 or so of the black and white statues, and I think this one is my favorite amongst them. I love the dynamic pose. I love the art direction on this piece, and I love the fact that it reflects one of Jock's, at least one of my favorite comic book covers by Jock, and that is Batman 44 in this cover that he did for that book. And you can see how directly tied the design of the statue is to the comic book cover. One of the things that you'll notice, getting back to the statue itself, one of the things that you'll notice is the quality of the statues varies. And this is one of the things, I'm not sure how DC produces their statues in terms of factories they use and so forth. I think we've all experienced differences in quality when it comes to sideshow pieces or Prime One or even XM, right? And I think it just depends on who's working at the factory, which factory is being used, etc. And the black and whites are no different. Some of them have differing levels of quality. This piece, I have to say, the paint is excellent. I'm going to bring up some close-ups here that try to point that out. But the colors and in terms of the blacks bleeding over to the grays and so forth, not really a factor here. This particular piece is really cool. It incorporates some gloss-covered blacks on his boots and his gloves and the gauntlets on his gloves. And then you have more matte finish on the cowl and cape and on his trunks. So it's really kind of a cool design. This piece is a second edition piece. There was a first edition. The only difference between the two is the bat logo or the emblem on his chest. So this one has kind of the newer logo with the gold or the yellow background. And the other piece is simply, or the other edition, the first edition, is the black only on the bat. That is the only difference. I know a lot of collectors are really hardcore about first editions. I'm not so much. I have some first editions, and I'm going to share those with you, hopefully subsequently to this video. But, you know, for the most part, some of those can be extremely pricey. And these are pieces I don't expect to resell, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But I think for the money, I think this one ran around on the secondary market about $180, which still in and of itself for a second edition statue is pretty expensive. But no, Jock did a fantastic job in the design on this, and I absolutely love it. Had the opportunity to meet him. I was really, really happy to do that. I love meeting the artists that I appreciate, and Jock's no different. Had the opportunity to meet him at New York Comic-Con, which I'll bring up a picture here, and he was just a fantastic guy. He was doing signings, signing Batman Who Laughs books, which I have a signature on that as well. But he also did this Black Mirror, and this one I particularly like. I was able to get an autograph from Scott Snyder, another fantastic guy, and then Jock was kind enough, if you can see here, to do a quick Batman sketch. That's the 5-second Batman sketch that he did in the book, and sign that as well. So really just a great guy. And actually, just a quick anecdote about that meeting. As I was standing there at his table, as you might imagine, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, all standing in the same area, same tables, and someone came up and knocked down Jock's table. All the books, everything went everywhere. And he didn't freak out. He didn't throw a tantrum. He wasn't pissed off. He just kind of smiled, laughed, shook it off, said, hey, those things happen, shook the guy's hand who knocked over all the stuff, and it was just a great experience. and honestly just makes me like the guy even more. So that was Jock. The second piece I wanted to talk about is this piece by Bruce Timm, designed by Bruce Timm, from Batman the Animated Series. And this piece is a first edition, and I'm just checking the number. This is number 282 of 4,000, and I don't recall the year. Actually, I do. It's written right on here for me. 2009. So this is an older piece, 10 years old now. Well, actually 11. An older piece, and one of those that is really hard to get. I had to track this one down on the secondary market. To me, really kind of encapsulates the character in a single pose. One of the reasons I like this statue, a lot of the Batman animated series statues, regardless of the form factor or scale, tend to be pretty static. They tend to be kind of the museum pose almost, and this one's a little bit dynamic. And if you look at the Tech 1000 variant cover done by Bruce Timm, I think it kind of resembles the pose in the book, which I kind of like. So every once in a while I'll put the book out with the statue, and just one of those cool ways of changing up the collection every so often. So I haven't had the opportunity to meet Bruce, but I have met Kevin, which was fantastic. So had the opportunity to do that, and I appreciate that. I'd love to meet Bruce sometime. I appreciate his work. He, like Jock, goes back a lot of years. I think, actually, if I recall, Bruce got his start, or some of his early work was actually done on He-Man and She-Ra. So he goes way back into the early 80s, and his work on the animated series has won Emmys, and then there was subsequently, of course, Justice League and Superman and so on. So let's talk a little bit about the quality of this Bruce Timm inspired Batman. So as I said, this is a 2009 version of this character. This piece is really well done. I'm going to bring up some close-ups. You can take a look. But this one, again, is one of the versions of these Batman black and whites where the paint quality is really sharp. So there's not a lot of bleed between the gloss blacks or the flat grays or the matte blacks. The quality of that is really good. The sculpt is really fairly simple, as you might imagine, especially for a Batman animated series design where the sculpt isn't too terribly complex. There's not a lot of different textures, etc. Like I said, there are two things about this particular piece that really grabbed my attention. That is the quality of the sculpt and design, as I just mentioned, but also the fact that it's kind of a dynamic pose for Batman in the animated series. So those are the two big pieces for me that really stand out, and this one just looks fantastic on the shelf. So as you can see here, really great work. One of the things you might notice here, and this is one of those elements you have to be careful with these really small pieces, and I went into this one knowing this guy, you'll notice one of the tips of his ears, the very tip, was knocked off. And to be completely honest, it's just, I don't know how it happened, but I went into this one knowing that was the case. There's no other damage on the statue, and for me, as somebody who has zero intention of ever selling these, that was worth it, especially at a relatively low price point, even for this first edition. I got this a while ago, a couple of years ago, and it was worth it going in. This particular one in the first edition is very difficult to find. Found a good deal, didn't mind the little chip on his ear, and anyway, sometimes those things happen. So absolutely love this guy. And I know both of these artists have actually done keyframe work for movies. I know Jock had some of his work in Batman Begins on the keyframe side. He's also done work, poster design related to the movies. I think Dark Knight Rises is one that comes to mind from Mondo, which I know a lot of you out there appreciate those Mondo posters as I do. If you've ever been to a con where Mondo is selling their work, you've never seen lines like this, with the exception of, really A-list celebrities. You've never seen lines like this. For some reason, man, those Mondo lines, they will wrap around the building. I saw them a few years back at San Diego Comic-Con, and the line was the length of the building. Absolutely incredible. And, the posters are cool and everything, but wow, they really command, I should say, a lot of interest. So anyway, so Jock has done work there, and I know Bruce Timm has done keyframe work as well. So it's really cool that you can get into these very artistically related, art-driven pieces at a really reasonable price point, so long as you don't go too far into the first editions that are older now, and that in those cases you can pay several $100s a piece. But for the most part, you can get into most of these pieces for anywhere from $50 to $150. So the other aspect that I love about these statues is I think they really do a nice job of accenting the collection. I know a lot of us like to incorporate omnibus and absolute books and props and other pieces to accent the statues in our collection and make our collection rooms that much more interesting. And I think these do a great job. And just to get into a little bit of a nuance of how I view them in my collection, I tend to put them with my books and with some other smaller pictures. But I love the fact that they're black and white because surrounded by the other Batman statues in my collection and even the MCU statues, which have more color, more impact, I like the fact that these smaller pieces don't detract from the color and impact related to the larger statues. They accent the books, they kind of do their job on the shelves, they're interesting and so forth, but they don't detract, which I kind of like. So I know that's kind of me, it's my view of the world, but it's I get comments on them in my collection when people come through my collection room here. I get comments on the small pieces as well. People tend to like them, so I do as well. At any rate, that's a quick video. I want to do a quick review on these two pieces, and I hope you enjoyed it. I want to bring you more. Like I said, I have about 16 of them in my collection. I thought we'd kind of do them 2 at a time. I'm not sure how much there is to say about each one of these individually, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to show you 2 of them, and I'll bring more videos subsequently covering others. And there are other characters as well. I've picked up a few of the Harley Quinn pieces. I've picked up a few of the Joker pieces and have those as well. So I hope you enjoyed this short video. If you have, please drop a like at the bottom. Comment, let me know which of these pieces you're collecting. I'm always interested to hear how other collectors feature statues like this, the smaller form factor pieces in their collections, whether it's these or Hot Toys or the new 1/10 pieces from Iron Studios, which they do a phenomenal job, or other DC pieces, gallery pieces. There's a lot to choose from. So I'd love to see pictures and hear what you do. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for joining us here on the Batman Statue Collector channel. Thank you, Chris, for having me again, and we'll see you next time. Take care.